Hey guys, hope you're all good. Today's video is going to be pretty long. As some of you may have noticed, I took down the earlier Smackdown Shut Your Mouth update videos, which gave you feature by feature video as to what was in sort of a timeline of how things progressed as the game was shaping up. However, I kept getting emails and messages and comments about what are the features every time I did a new update, and I was like, well, there's a playlist, so just click the playlist and you can watch everything. So today's video, we are going to be covering the newest update, which is the December 3rd update for Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. But after that, all the previous videos will be combined into this video. So it's a long video listing everything that's available in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth so far. So if you're new and you wanted to know what does the WWF version of Smackdown Shut Your Mouth feature, here is everything it contains. And for people who've been here since the beginning, don't worry, the Smackdown Shut Your Mouth December 3rd update features are first. Just afterward, everything else will be following. Before that though, let's talk about a few Patreon updates. Please remember, the new edition of SmackDown vs. Raw 2008's Definitive Edition is coming out on Patreon very soon for long-time Patreons. So, on the 15th, obviously, the new version of SmackDown vs. Raw 2008's Definitive Edition will go up. It is for RPCS3, right? That's the name. I only just got acquainted with PS3 emulation a few months ago because obviously loads of people wanted it to play on that rather than on a home console. So yes, this now works on a emulation as long as your PC can play PS3 games. That should work fine. It of course is the previous version that was working on CFW consoles. You will need this as a base for any future updates, so keep that in mind. And then yes, a few weeks later there will be an update with newer stuff for the PS3, and then a bit after that for the 360, and then a bit after that going into 2026 for the PS2. There's also some new Here Comes the Pain information up on Patreon right now, so yeah, please be sure to check that out if you're a long-term patron. If you're a new patron, please come on board, join patreon.com/ScottJAY. A bunch of cool stuff you can download there. For those of you who live in the UK, Europe, or outside of America, really internationally, and are waiting on any type of shipping something, please keep an eye on your mailbox in the next month or two, well, over the next month or two I should say, as things are starting to move out the door with that. Obviously America, sometime in April. Right, okay, let's have a look at all the features that are brand new in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth Definitive Edition December 3rd update. First up, yes, a multitude of bugs have been fixed, so not to worry, quite a few issues that occurred in the previous version shouldn't occur in this one. Due to the amount of feedback from people wanting to keep the storeroom, the APA office remains where it was initially intended for in the game. However, now the door has been repositioned to work correctly in season mode, with all collision damage restored, so now you can Irish whip anyone you want through the door. William Regal's commission office is finally entirely restored in this update. Not to worry, this doesn't affect season mode either, as season mode's cutscenes with the co-owners take place in a different part of the room, so you don't see any of the Regal office stuff. So it's another great place for you to have backstage brawls, or if you just want to trip down memory lane throughout 2001 while you're exploring in first person mode during season. Also new to this update is the Smackdown Oval Arena. It wouldn't be 2001 without this, would it? This has everything I could possibly take from Smackdown Just Bring It, and of course, as well as things I had to tweak just to make it fit with the style of Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. So new ring apron, new ramp, new lighting, and yes, of course, this is another arena with a unique microphone with the old Smackdown logo. This arena replaces Heat and gives you another new, unique arena to wrestle in. When you've had your fair share of beating the crap out of people, you can take a break and pop in the theater mode. There are 3 brand new videos for your viewing pleasure. Another new addition in this update is, yes, finally all NPCs are now playable. Not just in exhibition, you can even include them in your draft in season, if that's your kind of crazy. If you'd like Jim Ross to become WWF champion, go ahead. If you'd like Michael Cole to start a blood feud with Triple H, by all means, it's up to you. There has been updates to the heel and face system in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. Unlike in Here Comes the Pain, even if you would manually edit the draft in the game and place people as a face or a heel, the game would then reset them to what they were initially when the season started. This is because in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, if someone is a super face or super heel, the game will override where you place them and keep it that way regardless of what you do. There is, however, a neutral status that When in that state, characters can switch between face and heel naturally throughout the season. This has been adjusted, as well as the default face and heels have changed to how everything was around just after Survivor Series 2001, to kind of hit sort of a sweet spot. This also helps with all the tag teams and factions working in season mode when it comes to going after the tag team titles, as well as much more interference from stablemates, which just makes things flow a lot better during season and in exhibition. Next up, something I wanted to do was make the draft lottery a lot more fun on your first playthrough, as it takes quite a while for a lot of the roster to actually come back during season. So now, the whole WWF roster, except for Stone Cold, due to a clause in his contract, is now eligible for the draft on your first playthrough. You want Triple H as part of the main event scene from the get-go? You got it. You want to draft a huge custom NWO stable to any show? You can. You want to be able to draft Ric Flair in season? You can. Do you want HBK in season? Of course you can. He actually was available in the previous version. You can even draft Vince and Shane to your roster. Everybody's here and everybody's playable from the get-go on season, and I think it makes season a whole load more fun. You'll notice also a very small feature, which is that all the renders of the superstars have been changed to match promotional images from 2001 to very early 2002. For the most part, this also matches their default attires. I spent a lot of time scanning old books, promotional items, and all kinds of different things to match everything. So even though it's a very small thing, I hope you guys like this addition. I think it really helps with sort of the game synergy. So yeah, something very minor, but I think much better having Kurt Angle with hair in his American flag singlet, instead of having a bald Kurt Angle with the red A when that doesn't appear. In addition, WWF New York has been entirely restored now, featuring both giant steel WWF logos, one that is totally interactable, the addition of the WWF award on the podium, and of course every addition that was in the previous version, such as the WWF carpet, the draft screen, the custom posters, fully working in season mode, as well as fully working in the normal and winter venues.
Hey you guys, welcome back, and hoping you've all had a happy new year so far. Today's video is going to be a breakdown of an already existing written preview of the latest Smackdown Shut Your Mouth Definitive Edition. This is just a video breakdown of what else has been added in this already massive overhaul. So if you're new to the channel, videos detailing previous updates will be linked at the end of this video. And keep in mind that everything that is already in those updates will be carried over into this one. So as some of you guys already know, this test initially was just going to be an arena test, featuring 2 new arenas, such as the Roy's War 2001 arena being fully implemented, and a brand new pay-per-view for the July pay-per-view. Both of these things are here and present, so yes, the Raw 2001 arena is here and now fully playable. In March there is going to be a vote, however, because I made 3 different versions of this arena. The difference being is that they use different assets from different Ukes games. So there's one that uses SmackDown Just Bring It textures and assets, there's one that uses WrestleMania 18 textures and assets, and then there's one that is just custom built from SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. So when the vote goes live, you guys just pick the one you want in the release. Why did I make 3? Well, part of me thinks, was it just me being bored of looking at the same arena while I was testing it for almost a year? But also I just felt the SmackDown Shut Your Mouth textures didn't convey the exact look of the arena, and I thought, would Ukes have done it differently? So I wanted to go back and try and change a few things. Personally, I'm leaning most towards WrestleMania 18 on the GameCube. I like how that arena looks most there, whereas the photo here is using assets from SmackDown Just Bring It. So it really is up to your preference. And while we're on arenas, the July pay-per-view for this build will be WWF fully loaded, and will come complete with all cut season mode dialogue and intro by JR and the King. As we've talked about before over on Patreon, the WWF pay-per-view calendars of 2001 and 2002 both had fully loaded listed, so it's not surprising that Ukes had that penciled in as the standard July pay-per-view. Obviously, fully loaded was replaced by Invasion for 2001, but most assumed that would be back for 2002, especially when WWE listed it on the pay-per-view calendar. When they decided to bring back Armageddon, they moved Vengeance and got rid of fully loaded. So it's back here in its final game. In the final version of this, there will be fully loaded Invasion and Vengeance. Armageddon will not feature in this game at all. Fully loaded and a couple other things will feature in a brand new video coming soon. Another extremely popular feature, and probably something that has been wanted since this game released in 2002, is the ability to have both the WWF and World Championships both available in season without sacrificing one or the other. This is something I wanted, and a lot of people wanted, for a very long time, as I'm a big believer in the wrestling game should always be a reflection of the previous year of television, so you get all of that in game form. And unfortunately, due to the negative reaction of SmackDown Just Bring It, Ukes really tried to cram as much up-to-date stuff in there as possible, whereas this really would have been the game that would have been perfect to have a lot more invasion content, but a lot of 2001 content in general, such as having the World and WWF titles being separate, and then possibly a storyline that would make you the undisputed champion somewhere down the road. And while that's not possible, at least now you can have a WWF champion and a world champion. What else is exciting for this build is that in the intros, when Howard Finkel announces what championship it's for, he will say World Wrestling Federation Championship or World Championship, just like all the other titles in the game. Now, I've always said that I really like the creation suite of SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, the creator wrestler especially. A lot of us played as wrestlers that didn't make the cut that year, wrestlers that newly debuted, Spider-Man, Star Wars characters, you name it, it was there. But for the most part, it's going to be wrestlers that didn't make the final roster. So to improve on the creation suite, there are now 120 Titantrons, different Titantrons, available for selection, as well as 120 different pieces of Superstar theme music. With this, you'll be able to do things I wanted to do back when this game initially released. Not only do you have Titantrons and music for Superstars that are not in the game, you have Titantrons and different select theme music for tag teams that may have split up, as well as Superstars that have changed their theme music and Titantron within the last 18 months. So you can always revert back to certain Superstars' previous Titantrons and themes, such as my best friend, who will always have Triple H with My Time, overall allowing you more freedom to customize the game to your liking. Now, with all that extra music and all those extra Titantrons, it's only right that certain Superstars will have different attires to match the time period and that specific Titantron and theme music. Not only that, but some Superstars that wore event-only t-shirts during select WWF pay-per-views of 2001 and early 2002 will be included in the game. That's not all though, I've actually just started changing some members of the crowd to also wear those event exclusive t-shirts. So you'll always catch maybe a select few members of the audience wearing t-shirts corresponding to the correct pay-per-view event you're wrestling at. Okay, time for something that I'm really happy with and actually really glad I decided to go ahead and do. Here's your first look at brand new loading screens in SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Now, I really like Ukes' design sensibilities a lot of the time. So while I wanted them to fit the theme of the Definitive Edition, which would be 2001 to early 2002, I also wanted them to look like Ukes had officially made them. And I think I've struck pretty much the right balance here, if I do say so myself. I'm really happy with these. These are just the initial first lot of loading screens I did. There's actually over 30 now done. So yeah, you can expect a lot of brand new loading screens in the game. This is super minor, I know, but I just feel like it keeps you in the experience. It's something new to look at while you're waiting for a match to load or season to load. So yeah, even though it might not be the most dynamic or exciting of things, I hope these are enjoyed. While on things that are very minor, a lot of Superstar renders that didn't necessarily fit the time period have been changed. They've been changed to the exact renders that WWF.com used for the majority of 2001 and early 2002. I think this better represents and fits the game overall. So yeah, while again another super minor thing, but I just think it's another thing that visually is interesting and new. Hey guys, welcome back. So if you remember in the last video about SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, we touched upon loading screens, specifically the tutorial loading screens, specifically how they better match the time period of the game. So today I'll be revealing all 30 Superstar loading screens. As I mentioned in the previous video, all existing loading screens from the original base game have been replaced by brand new ones to again better fit the overall time period and aesthetic of the game. Okay, so without delay, let's take a look at all the brand new Superstar loading screens for SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Alright, here we have it. I hope you guys like all of them. Some of these images took a long time to create, as I used scans from my personal magazine and program collection to get the correct shots, because some shots that are online have either been edited by WWE.com or fans,
and they no longer feature sort of the WWF logo and have other various edits and changes to them that weren't in the original image. The first goal of making something that I guess some people won't even pay attention to was that I always felt when Ukes and THQ were sort of trying to right the wrong of just bring it and keep Smackdown Shut Your Mouth as up to date as possible, you could tell they were updating this game right to the wire. And while I commend and understand why they did that, they actually really missed the opportunity to give everybody the game they wanted the year prior. So when going through something as simple as a loading screen, and because of that, I think it's so easy to forget how awesome the roster and the season mode of this game is. And part of that is because in a lot of the game aesthetics, such as season mode and loading screens and things like that, they use a lot of updated superstar materials, which doesn't fit with the timeline. So it's sort of this weird mishmash. This is intended to rectify that. So how this is now is every single superstar is reflective of how they appear in the game, and behind most of them reflects a major moment or milestone during the year of WWF TV. So you will see with The Rock, his primary image is from his return, his background image is the last time he was the WWF champion. With Stone Cold Steve Austin, you have him and Vince shaking hands. With Triple H, you've got him becoming the undisputed champion in his triumphant return. With Kurt Angle, you have the milk truck episode where he's spraying the Alliance with milk. With The Undertaker, you've got the first time really the streak was properly acknowledged. With stars that never had loading screens before, like with DDP, you have his surprising debut. With Edge, you have him winning King of the Ring and taking the photo. I can't believe Edge didn't have a loading screen. With Rikishi, you have his return and the untimely end of the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club. With Rhino, you've got him taking Jericho out through the stage with the gore. All the way down to Maven, where it's him winning Tough Enough. And I just think when these loading screens will pop up now, it will remind you not only of a moment that you can probably replay in this game or see a cutscene of in season mode, but remind you how cool the roster of this game is. And, you know, it's a very little thing and something very minor, but I hope you guys like little things like this that have been scattered throughout the game, because not only do they take a lot of time, I think that it really expands the experience. So anyway, I hope you guys like that. Okay. So maybe we'll start with something I haven't shown on Patreon. Now this is an optional extra that was made with pure nostalgia in mind. Nostalgia of the very first Smackdown Shut Your Mouth trailer. Now in that trailer, obviously as a proof of concept, Ukes showed the draft taking place on SmackDown instead of Raw. This is likely because they didn't have the new Raw set finished in time for the trailer, and the draft taking place on SmackDown was more a placeholder. However, as someone that has huge nostalgia for that trailer, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have the option where if you wanted it, you can have the WWF draft take place on SmackDown instead of Raw, just like that original trailer. Now again, this is optional. In the normal version, the draft takes place on the Raw 2001 set. However, for Ukes nostalgia people like myself, video game nostalgia, I suppose, you can also have it take place on SmackDown. I understand it's going to be a very small contingent of people that want this. Maybe no one, maybe just me. And it took a lot of work to actually get this to work. But still, I thought it's super cool and it's fully working. And even though it's not accurate and just super video gamey, I think it's really cool and I'll probably be using this one. Next up, let's talk about improvements to Backstage. While in the last update, I added things such as accurate t-shirts, accurate magazines and merchandise, as well as real-life vending machines accurate to the time, the next thing on my list was to not only restore some cut content, but also add content of my own that would capture more the essence of the Backstage being lived in by the characters that inhabit it. This was a big deal in wrestling in the very late 90s and the early 2000s, as the Backstage wasn't just some randomly red or blue lit corridor. It was multiple sets that helped flesh out the characters that sort of lived in the WWF at the time. So first up, the APA door has been restored. Now initially, I was going to place this in the stock room and create an entire APA office in there with the table, beers, and filing cabinet. But I thought it was more accurate to TV to put the door in the downstairs corridor. And then I figured, okay, I can add the table on the side and add the file cabinet up against the wall. Currently, I've just finished the door, so now if you Irish whip an opponent into the door, it will actually break. That's not all, because cut from the original game and now restored is the APA signpost, which has been added to the directions board in the upstairs lobby. So when you're walking past, whether it be season mode or a backstage fight, you'll now know where to go if you need some protection. In addition to that, you can't have an APA office without APA attired Farouk and Bradshaw, who are now there if you want a game of cards, a drink, or an ass whooping. Moving on, another location that has been restored is a lot more for aesthetics and for exhibition over season mode, but something that I really wanted in this game. Commissioner Regal's office is now back, complete with his desk, all contents of the desk, as well as the flagpole. This is also reflected outside in the lobby, where it no longer says VIP room, it says Regal office. And for those wondering if it affects season mode at all, it really doesn't. Yes, it's signposted as Regal's office, but this is more an aesthetic change for exhibition. When you go to talk to Vince or Flair, they're usually standing by the curtain statically, so you can't see any of the room's contents. So anything that was even in the VIP room, such as the sofas and the table, you can't really see them at all. So it doesn't take away anything from season, but it adds more play value to exhibition, where you can have another fun location to fight in Regal's office. Also, the game being based around 2001 to 2002, I just feel it fitting that you have the Commissioner's office. Now on the VIP room, initially I wanted to fuse both the VIP room and the Commissioner's office together, so you had all the contents in one room. Lately I am wondering, is it a bit too cluttered having all that stuff in one location? And would it be better to separate the VIP room and Regal's office as two separate areas, two separate selectable areas in exhibition? This is something I really want to do, and I'm more and more considering it seriously as time goes on. You know, I've stared at this game long enough that I can pretty much do anything I want with it. So I'm thinking and leaning more towards making them separate. I'm not sure. I will keep you posted. But so far, I hope you guys like the updates to Backstage. Oh wait, I'm not done with Backstage. While also trying to make this a more living, breathing environment, I've added a variety of brand new weapons to various locations backstage, some even character specific, just to give you that more lived in feel. So for starters, in the boiler room now, you can find the most beautiful thing to ever grace the earth in Moppy. In the stockroom, there'll be a stop sign, and in other areas you can find Steve Blackman's sticks, and even Head, just to give that extra bit of fun. This gives me real No Mercy vibes these days when playing this. Okay, time for another minor thing, and I know some people might be like, why bother with this stuff, just get to X, Y, or Z, but it really is the little things that sort of make these projects complete. So previously in the game, if you had a ladder match or TLC title match, the championship title that would be hanging above the ring would be the undisputed title. But obviously the title that is in the game in season mode is the WWF title. In this newest version that has been rectified in all arenas, when you play a ladder or TLC match, the championship belt that hangs above the ring will be the WWF title. I know this is a very small detail that you barely see, but in instances you do catch it. I do think it should just be there and be correct. So I hope that's liked. I know some of these details, it's like somebody messaged me being like, why did you bother with the draft screen in WWF New York on the TV monitor? And you know, it's just because that like little extra detail I just think is so valuable. That's the kind of stuff I loved as a teenager. Since we're talking about belts, let's just go over something very, very quickly that I already spoke about in a previous video. I'm still getting questions about it, so I'm just going to answer it again. The Cruiserweight title is gone. It has been renamed and is a different belt. It is the Light Heavyweight Championship, just like WWF TV. And the WCW or World title is an extra belt. So essentially you have an extra mid-card title. The WCW title does not interfere with any WWF championship storylines. So basically it's just like another mid-card title. The champion can be drafted to either show, and depending on the show you're on, all you need to do is go to Vince or Flair, ask for a title shot, get put in the match, and win the belt. And all previously non-playable characters are now playable on the roster. So yes, that means Jim Ross, Jerry the King Lawler, Michael Cole, Deborah, and Linda McMahon are all fully playable in exhibition and in season mode. as well as no one on the base game's roster being missing. While we're here, why don't we talk about some new audio? During Ric Flair's entrance, he's now introduced by Howard Finkel as the co-owner of the WWF, and for the July pay-per-view, Jim Ross correctly welcomes you all to Fully Loaded, and for the December pay-per-view uses the correct audio introduction for Vengeance. Another thing to look forward to is that renders have been changed to match correctly their WWF.com appearance that was used for the majority of 2001 to the early part of 2002. Moving on, even more Titantrons have been added to the Creation Suite. There are now 100 to choose from. Something I always thought was a massive oversight was to not include stuff like extra themes or extra music for stars that weren't necessarily in the game. It sort of hindered the Creator Wrestler. You know, around that time, I remember I had quite a few friends that never even interacted with Creator Wrestler because, you know, what was the point if they didn't have their Titantrons or theme music? They had other things in the game, such as ring announcements for stars that weren't there, such as Mike Awesome. But at a time where you can't easily add music or Titantrons, it was kind of useless to a lot of people. So hopefully, even though it's all these years later, you can have even more fun creating wrestlers that may not be in the game, but also being able to swap out Titantrons and theme music for people that had multiple themes over the year and a half or so that this game covers. Alright, before I start, I will do a very brief breakdown on what this Definitive Edition is, even though it's been talked about to death for about the past, I don't know, year and a bit on Patreon, but in case you aren't a Patreon, here's a quick rundown of what the next Definitive Edition of Smackdown Shut Your Mouth is. Okay, so this extensive project basically covers the final year and a bit of the company's time as the WWF, with the entire game being fully restored with the WWF logos, spread out into 4 versions per quarter year, 5 if you were a long-time Patreon, each containing different attires, gimmicks, sometimes arenas, title belts, and in some extreme cases, even some different backstage and outdoor imagery. If you need any more information on this, you can always check Patreon at patreon.com/ScottJay. And check out some of the older posts and screenshots if this quick rundown wasn't enough. Okay, so I always wanted to do this video breakdown. Originally, I thought before doing the post on Patreon, it was going to be a video post. But I just haven't had time since recovering from COVID. I've just been so busy catching up with everything. There just hasn't really been any time to do a video sooner than this. And as you know, I wanted to get that Smackdown Shut Your Mouth preview up at the end of last month. And even though I felt it featured a pretty extensive write-up, I still wanted to make this video, even though, you know, the post is now, a week and change old. So I had some time and I just thought, why not do this? You're so passionate about this era or just a little before, and I have such vivid memories about wrestling and the video game industry in this time period. It's like probably one of the most impactful time periods in both industry's history as well as my own life as well. So let's get stuck in. Okay, let's start with season mode, and the first thing I want to talk about is the draft cutscene, or specifically the set that Linda McMahon is sitting at. Now, it has changed from the official retail game, obviously. There is the WWF logo right there, and as you can see by the imagery behind her, the 2 sheet posters are not what they were before, which was renders of Kurt Angle and The Rock. Instead, they're actual photos of Rock and Austin. Now, on the actual episode that aired on television, the WWF logo is black, and the sheet photos behind them, one is from Kurt Angle's entrance at SummerSlam, which I had a look through all my photo reference albums and all my magazines, if I could scan a photo, pretty much everything, and I don't have that photo. And I have pretty much everything the company released from about 1998 till at least 2004. I was very possessive of that era of wrestling. I collected pretty much everything, and I don't have that photo, but that's not the reason I didn't use it. Part of what I want with this project is to still feel like it's a game, and an official one at that. And if Ukes were given the ability to create sort of something, I guess what my mind's eye sees exactly as what they would want, this is how I think they'd do it. So I obviously use the colored WWF logo, the red and white, because I feel like it's more gamey, it's more in touch with the official Smackdown Shut Your Mouth instead of going with the black logo. And I use photos of Rock and Austin because I felt like, one, if this were a game, those were the 2 photos you'd use, especially if the Austin walkout hadn't happened yet. You would use Rock and Austin as they were the top 2 major stars. But doubly, both of these photos were used as the actual sheet photos on this very set during episodes of the highlight shows and also on episodes of WWF Access. If you don't know what WWF Access is, you probably weren't around during 2001. It was a very short-lived show. I think it went into 2002 as well, for a very brief period of time. I enjoyed it. I loved all those types of shows where it was leaning more sports rather than, well, where it is now. But yeah, so they are officially used photos they used on that set, and I thought it was the perfect balance. So that was the idea. It was, in terms of if you were a game developer, you would use the two most prolific stars, which is Rock and Austin. Even the WWF magazines were obviously being like, Rock on one show, Austin on the other, amazing, you know, who would you choose? And then also trying to keep it real to life, these are two photos they actually used on the actual stage at various points during the year. Okay, moving on. Here, as you can see, when you select the WWF Champion in season now, it says WWF Champion, not Undisputed Champion. However, when you get the Undisputed title, obviously it says WWF Undisputed Champion. And as I've shown previously, all other belts say WWF as well. I really tried to make that texture look as official as possible, so it's a pretty close match with the WWE logo in the official game. Okay, next, as you can see, we're at the Vengeance pay-per-view in December, and Vengeance is brought to you by Lugs. I've showed this stuff off before on Patreon, such as the Royal Rumble being sponsored by Final Fantasy X, and so on and so forth. But you don't just see the sponsors at the start of the event. If they appeared on a Minitron, they are on the Minitron, but also help replace the fake adverts in the general arena. And again, to keep this feeling like a video game that came out in the 2000s, I've actually edited the title credits screen. So when it comes up with, say, licensed music or anything else, I've actually added the sponsors to the credits, just to add that little bit extra feel of authenticity. Next up, playable characters in season and the overall draft pool. Now, one thing that did irk me when the game came out was they gave you such an awesome Ric Flair model, and one of my best friends is like a crazy hardcore Ric Flair fan. He's a little older than me, but you could never use Ric Flair in season mode. He's just not in the official game for obvious story reasons. I just thought, with giving you the option of making him draftable, he's also in the superstar entry pool. Same with Vince McMahon and others that you can turn on or off. So if you don't want Ric Flair in season, you don't have to have him. But if you do want him in season, he and Vince and anyone else works fully. So they're draftable, they're playable, they appear in matches, they're booked in matches, they have superstar points, everything works perfectly. However, if you are playing as Ric Flair and you don't draft yourself to SmackDown, then, well, you're going to have a couple of cutscenes where Rick will bump into Rick and obviously have a conversation, which might be a tad awkward, or Ric Flair is losing his mind. Same with Vince if you do the same with him on SmackDown. But overall, as a video game, I think this is a super fun option to have. I think just having more characters available in the season mode that can win titles and, you know, affect sort of your playthrough of season is fun and is only a good thing because you have the option to deactivate it if you don't want it. Moving on to something minor, which is the King of the Ring trophy. Now, the King of the Ring trophy has been updated with, yes, the WWF logo. However, there are two versions of this, because initially I wanted this to look like Ukes had made it, so the WWF logo just replaces the WWE logo and it looks as official as humanly possible. But also, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have the real trophy as well with the WWF logo on the lower part of the trophy just above the King of the Ring logo? One of my other friends told me about this as well, so I ended up making another trophy as well. Not sure how I'm going to roll that out. Is there going to be a King of the Ring trophy version? I'm not sure. It might be one of the things where I put on a poll, do you want more video game or more real? Or I might just put it out. Who knows? But I made both just in case. I personally lean more towards the video game one, but then that's just because I have a very strong attachment with Ukes. I kind of think they are probably one of my favorite developers ever. I mean, they have to be, right? I've played their games for so much of my life now. We're talking majority of my life. Now, the last thing in season I want to touch on is microphones, and specifically the SmackDown microphone, because I had so many requests to re-implement the old SmackDown microphone from Trailer 1. And I did do that. I did that for one of the backstage areas, which is the corridor, which is basically the area you start in the season when you walk around, and for the SmackDown arena. But as I continued to develop this and put it together, everywhere else has the WWF scratch logo microphones. And just for the sake of uniform, for what I just feel this project is, I am going to just have the WWF logo microphone everywhere. Now, that's not to say that that Smackdown microphone won't get released. I might do a separate sort of Smackdown Arena release with the Smackdown microphone that is an optional sort of add-on for people's games. But I just think the WWF microphone is just so much more uniform. I did make a blue tick variant, but I'm not sure if even that's going to get in, because I pretty much, watched so much of it where a lot of the time when it was the WWF logo in the latter part of 2001, the early part of 2002, it is just the standard red and white logo. Moving on to something I'm super happy with, and that is the return of WWF New York. Now, as you can see here, not only is the WWF New York logo restored, but there's a whole bunch of extra things here as well. For starters, the bright lit text as well as the accompanying WWF logos now return, not to mention the outside showboard, which logos actually change depending on the version. So as you can see when I took photos here, it has the Raw 2002 logo plastered about, but in other cases, of course, it would be the Raw 2001 logo, as well as something different on the side over there. Most notably on the billboard is the official poster for WrestleMania 18. Now, this was how the billboard looked back in March of 2002. And the reason I went with this is because in every single SmackDown game up to this point, the goal is to reach WrestleMania. The final arena, essentially, you play in season is always WrestleMania, and they usually take cutscenes from whatever happened at WrestleMania that year. Usually, from SmackDowns 1 to 4, they usually have something animated from WrestleMania of that year. So it only seemed fitting to have WrestleMania 18 as the billboard during most of the year. However, if you're playing in the winter, it does change, and a lot of the advertisements change as well. And the billboard is for WWF Survivor Series. As we make our way inside, just a quick little note that the WWF carpet has now returned, but that's not what we're going to be taking a look at here, because I think I even missed this in the Patreon post. The WWF New York table place holders, the things they put on the, I can't think of what they're called now, the little things they put on the tables, which are like triangles, with the logo on. I cannot for the life of me think about this. There's no script. I'm just looking at photos and recording this right now. But yes, those are back there. If you look right behind that woman's head, there will be the WWF New York table placement thing that is in the restaurant. There's actually a multitude of posters around here. There is Unforgiven 2001, No Mercy 2001, and WWF No Way Out 2002. Not to mention, I actually put some nod to Ukes and Smackdown Shut Your Mouth in here, because this is a video game and I thought it'd be cool. I put the actual game poster that was in all magazines, inserts, everything at the time that was advertising Shut Your Mouth about 2 months right before the game came out. So here it is. Now, this image was super hard to find on the internet, so I actually had to go through my physical press folders, quite a few folders of press materials relating to video games from my time in the industry, and these would be like broadsheets which we would scan to be like, right, if this is going to go in a magazine, it would be like a back page advert or a bunch of numbers advertising a store, import shops, all kinds of things, right? So I knew I saved the Smackdown Shut Your Mouth ad. So I actually went in, scanned it, thinking, oh yes, this is going to look awesome. And, I could have probably just found some crummy photo on the internet. But I didn't. That is the actual high quality scanned poster that is of its highest quality, even though you probably can't tell here. And yes, it is in WWF New York. Fun fact here is that all 14 pay-per-view posters from King of the Ring 2001 all the way to Judgment Day 2002 are smattered all across the game in the free roam mode. So if you want, you can go looking around to see if you can find them all, which I thought was a fun extra. Now, the next thing we're looking at, you probably can't even see what I'm talking about. But okay, if you see those circular TVs that are right at the back there behind the people, there is actually a screenshot of the results of the first WWF draft. It's the results screen telling the audience which superstars are on which show. So it looks like kind of the people there are looking at the draft results. I thought that was super cool. Probably something that is not even going to be looked at, going to be completely missed. But there's loads of stuff like that in this version. I've just kind of gone pretty crazy over the last year putting this thing together. I wrote down a whole dossier the year before that of what I wanted to do, and I've kind of stuck to it religiously. Okay, now we're moving back to the arena and we're at the corridor, and now we can see something that your mind's eye might tell you was always there, but it wasn't. And that is, firstly, Stone Cold has merchandise at the merch shop. So if you can see on the corner there, the Watch shirt is now back for sale, and there are piles of them on there. Now, for those of you that are a little younger and don't know, during the game's development, Stone Cold Steve Austin walked out of the WWE, and he was absolutely right in doing so, not because he didn't want to lose to Brock Lesnar, not because the match should have been built up onto a pay-per-view, but because he was completely right. The creative had been terrible since after WrestleMania 17. Yes, in hindsight, it wasn't that bad because wrestling just gets absolutely worse afterward, but that's no excuse. Austin was used to the high bar and noticed the massive decline, as did everybody else. I mean, so many people were disappointed with the invasion. Loads of people, couldn't believe they didn't do Rock Austin at SummerSlam for the title, which was what they were hinting to, and that what they were planning that whole time till the invasion took place. I mean, even the poster was so evident that that was where they were going to go, and they changed direction, and then they made Kurt Angle a copy of Steve Austin. It was pretty bad. I remember, like I said in my last video, I have a whole book which I wrote in my last year of high school, basically changing everything that happened in 2001, sort of rewriting it, delaying things to try and make sense of it, and just, I suppose, give it the correct outcomes. Anyhow, nevertheless, because of this walkout, Stone Cold's presence in the game was absolutely nullified, and we were very lucky because even though, yes, there are some cutscenes in the season that still remain, there was one in particular which I have a build where it is enabled, so I'm just going to copy that over and make sure it works on this game. But the Watch scene that is in the trailer is actually even in the retail game, it's just disabled, but it's not in prior versions before retail. And, the reason that is because they were really trying to lessen Stone Cold's presence in the game, and because it was Stone Cold that left, it was unthinkable. On actual real TV shows. Now, this is something that sort of none of your journalists would know that are on the internet these days because they didn't really watch wrestling back then. A lot of them may have done casually that are experts now and they watch all the bad stuff, but they ain't got a damn clue about what actually went on in the Attitude Era. Here's some actual stuff that happened, which is during the time of his walkout, the company was so adamant. I don't know if that was because Vince McMahon was so angry, but those Watch shirts, even though they were hot sellers, they were giving them away. I remember people posting photos from house shows where the Watch shirts were on like a stand and they were like $4, $3, just trying to get rid of so much Austin merchandise. They did like major clearance on the Stone Cold like What DVD packages, because back in the day they used to do superstar packages. So say when The Rock's Just Bring It DVD came out, you could get a package, which firstly, the first package they did came with a Team Bring It shirt, that, and I think a keychain and something else. And then the second package they did of that DVD was you could buy it and you'd get the Just Bring It with the USA flag shirt. Austin had the same thing. You get a What shirt with the What DVD and some other stuff. And even Shop Zone and Euroshop as well. Oh God, they put those things on clearance. I mean, because at the time it really didn't look like he was going to come back. Like that first maybe 2 to 3 months. Of course, things settled down after, but in the early part, especially, and that was during the game's development, it really looked bad. So much so that I remember journalists were calling THQ to get updates on the Steve Austin situation. Now, everybody already knew that Scott Hall wasn't going to make the cut for SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Side note, I do know there is an official model for Scott Hall now, and there were a few others that were sculpted that just didn't make the cut. Same with Just Bring It. I found this out only a few months ago, which was kind of crazy. But anyway, back on topic, Stone Cold Steve Austin, everybody had sort of made their peace with other people not making the cut for games or whatever. But this was Austin. This was crazy. It'd be like not having Rock or Austin in the game is just unthinkable. So, a lot of journalists were calling around to make sure that he would still appear in the game. and THQ were like assuring you that yes, he would be in the game, because THQ did have to reassure people that he would still be a part of the game, which, you know, I mean, thank goodness he was. But yes, the watch shirts are here, which is absolutely awesome. Now, a small addition in the corridor is that the foam hands now have the WWF logo. I remember when getting this game, one of the most fun things about it is just the extra thought of that, say, early 2000s video game where it was, you know, PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox was full of wonder. It was full of, we're pushing what we can do here. And Ukes was always about adding fun stuff too. Yes, you have the realism, but, you know, pick up the RVD double thumbs and do the pose, or, you know, loads just really cool fun stuff you could do like that in these games. The snowball fights, being able to get in a car or on the motorcycle and drive around. A lot of this stuff is lost. I mean, part of that is also because wrestling is, you know, the characters in wrestling don't have any of this stuff. They don't have any association with anything. So it's, you know, it's super bland. So, you know, you can't necessarily do that in a video game now. But even in that new AEW video game, you are seeing sort of Ukes trademarks like their minigames. And this is just something I loved back then. The ability to just go pick up things like the foam hand, or the foam what sign, whatever. Anyway, they have the WWF logos back, which is really... If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Please like that video, and please hit subscribe if you haven't already. You can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/ScottJay. There is tons of stuff to have a look at over there. In the next couple of videos, I want to do some gameplay videos of both Smackdown Shut Your Mouth and Smackdown Just Bring It, just showing some of the new features of both. And then I am doing a Q&A video. I'm not sure if it's going to be just a straight Q&A or maybe have a bit of a Christmas thing in it. Last year I really wanted to do a Christmas video, and I think I couldn't because of my travel commitments. I know I did a Christmas video the year prior, which was the Sonic 2 video, and I sort of wanted to do a better version of that now that I'm here, and there's a lot of stuff around that I could sort of pick from, and I kind of thought about doing almost an entire year's worth of different products in one video. So yeah, just sort of a little Christmas look back. But yeah, that'll happen hopefully December time. I've got a lot coming out in the next couple of weeks. There's like Smackdown vs. Raw 2008, then the new Shut Your Mouth comes out, then obviously there's like a long-term Patreons get like a Here Comes the Pain update. There's quite a few things going on, so I have to pace myself. But yes, that Q&A or maybe Q&A Christmas video will be up toward the end of the year. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. You take care, and I will see you in the next one.